Hoover High School.
Yeah.
I was at 3 different school districts.
I don't think they had them in high school, but
But
they
the
had
most
them
I
in junior
experienced was
high.
the band teacher angry at people messing up and throwing a chalk eraser at them.
6th grade schools, 4 middle schools. That was my upbringing.
You got moved a lot.
I moved
Wow.
20 times by the time I was 19 years old.
Oh, man. That's way too much. Is this your pen or just a?
Yeah,
Oh,
I adapt
pen.
well.
Hello, Dan. Good. Good.
Actually, I wrote them and I haven't.
All right, you have to share the microphone. There's only one mic plug-in.
So we don't have an agenda for this meeting, or do we? Am I missing it?
She
Yes. Test, test, test.
She has a stack of printouts too. Did you get one?
All I
Yeah,
have
she
is.
printed out about 10 of them,
No, I
just
don't
for
have
those
that.
that want them.
Where did I miss it?
They should be right there in the file.
I don't see a pile anymore. Here, I can use my computer. Here you go.
Well,
It's okay. Are you sure? Okay.
But I have to have it.
Get that 10 minutes.
I think so.
She may have taken with her, because we've got a couple of events that are,
Even if it's the paper copy here, she's got it.
maybe it was my box
She's got it open here
downstairs.
on her computer.
all that kind of stuff. But that's my
Email
last,
or
yeah.
paper
So,
copy?
but just in case, I didn't change it.
When we came in.
I'm very sorry.
Okay, thanks for letting us
Yeah,
know.
but I know.
She has a stack, she has a stack.
Quiet.
Maybe she ran off to make another copy.
Oh, I bet.
I'm not like,
She also has the.
I'm not telling you this gossip or anything like that. It's, yeah.
Oh, I don't have, so I don't either.
Stuff.
You don't have a place or something?
She'll be back.
Okay, okay.
To talk on the phone, because you could use that next
Yeah.
door.
Yeah.
Close though, close.
But, yeah, so, yeah, but anyway, I can't silence it.
Yeah, understood. Understood.
Yeah, anyway, I just wanted to let you know.
Thanks. Thanks.
Want to make sure everybody's got everything before we start, right?
So check this out. She stapled
So
it on
this
the
is
other
the Parks and
side.
Trees Advisory
Oh,
Board.
that's the, that needs to go over to,
I grabbed the wrong one.
She stapled this on the
Caitlin's
other
desk.
side. She said the computer, or the printer just did it, right? This is so cool though, because watch this. Oh no, I was wrong. I thought it kept everything right
But we
side
just want to make
up.
sure everybody's got.
Never
you
mind.
can if you tell it to.
Let me just take a brief look.
Where's Caitlin? We were wrong. I was
She's down.
wrong.
She's downstairs, I believe.
Okay.
I think she can print this print.
I thought it was this magic and it's not. It's not magic. It's still upside down, Caitlin.
Is it?
Yeah. I just had to use my head for a second. I know, me too.
So the printouts we need tonight are this and this, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Very good,
Knows
okay.
that Robert Jackson's
Uh,
Here,
I'm
here.
not sure.
Oh, is that mine?
I picked it up, take a look at.
Oh,
I need
okay.
to vote.
Yep.
And then we
Well,
need
that was
somebody for
sly,
this.
sir.
We need to step for here too.
That was sly. I didn't even notice.
I just picked it up and took a quick look at it.
It's like, wait a second.
Remind me not to leave my purse around you. Mayor, right in front of you.
Yes.
Robert Jackson's excused tonight.
Okay. And so is Nick, right?
Yes.
Right?
Counselor Smith, yes.
Okay.
This is.
So if you want, I'll swap you. Well, I already wrote mine.
Watch
Yours
it.
yours didn't get stapled. Okay. You have a stapler with you?
Was she going to make another copy? Yeah.
That sound. Everything's working.
This is the other thing. Overview.
Michelle, do our notes for the committees, can they be kept in the same notebook as all our other notes? Okay, that there's no like rule, okay.
So we will be sharing microphones, right?
Right. Yeah, we have to share. Because it was causing participants in the system.
Doug and Cameron.
Hissing at each other.
Yeah, so it was better to.
Jim, do you know anything about Doug Orton or Cameron Burke?
Have not heard from either of them, no. And Norma Jean? She was in
Yeah,
earlier
Norma
today.
Jean was here today, so.
Did either of them respond to emails that were sent out about this?
They have not.
Okay. We'll reach out to them.
We still have a quorum?
We just need 8. Okay, where are you gonna put that tonight?
Can you guys all talk really loud for me?
Probably up here, because the chair will be up
Upstairs?
here. Yeah. All right, Caitlin, I don't need it. Unless you're gonna get it already.
There's one on the other end.
Mixed it up.
They do that just to confuse us, don't they?
Good to see you.
We have a good set of this for Norma.
I'm gonna go grab some from right downstairs.
Hi.
I mean, I think that is. How are you?
Christina, if you can let Norma share off yours until, we better wait for Caitlin to get back.
Okay.
Oh, it started warming up this afternoon. It felt decent.
It's gonna be nice tomorrow.
Yeah, I thought winter was over. I was ready to dry out.
Yeah. It's really bored on Saturday.
Shasta Lake was
Oh, there he is.
all the way up to the top.
I haven't seen it.
Hello, Clark.
Hello, good to see you.
I'm friends with your wife now.
Yes, that's wonderful.
I like her, she's sweetie.
They got so low.
Better make sure it works. It does, I actually wrote with it, so we're good. Usually I'm borrowing pens. Nope. You got it.
Sometimes I have none.
The transportation utility fee. Next versus.
I don't know how many I have today. It's multiple.
Utility fee of this funniest course.
Good evening and welcome to the Creswell Budget Committee meeting, May 7, 2024. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming out tonight for this first meeting of our Budget Committee, and welcome to all the members of the Budget Committee, the citizens, as well as the citizens who are counselors. We're all citizens here in Creswell. So I'm going to begin with the roll call. If you'll just say here when I call your name. Dave Stram, here. Alonzo Castillo.
Here.
Shelley Clark.
Here.
Clark Kent.
Here.
Norma Jean Osborne.
Here.
Stacy Holt.
Here.
Nicholas Smith has an excused absence. Doug Wharton. Doug Wharton is not here. Robert Jackson has an excused absence. Derek Isaacson.
Here.
Christina Corsi.
Here.
Cameron Burke. Absent. Joshua Johnson. Here. Lori Barker.
Here.
So, Jim, if you can reach out to Doug and Cameron, and I will do that as well, make sure they know, and that we get the materials to them, and they know the next day of the meeting. So, before we move on to item number 3, I'd like to have some comments at the beginning of budget training. So, our 3 new members, I understand you all went to training with Jim, and the comments I'm going to make are from local budgeting in Oregon, which is put out by the Oregon Department of Revenue, and Jim assured me when I talked to him that it has not been updated. So the comments I make come directly from this, mostly, and I'll refer to the pages. The first comment I have is ask questions, especially if you're new to the budget. Ask questions. I was asked recently about being a mayor, and I said I had a ton of things to learn when I started, and I just asked a lot of questions. So ask questions, particularly of Jim, who is our budget officer, and Michelle, our city manager. Number 2, page 10 in the book says, all members of the budget committee have the same degree of authority and responsibility. There are 14 budget committee members, 7 counselors, and 7 citizens. We all have a vital role to play. It takes 8 votes to approve the budget. And my main point here is that even if you're new, or even if you're not a member of the city council, don't think, well, my vote doesn't count as much because I'm not a counselor, or I'm new. Every vote has the same amount of authority, and your vote is just as important as anybody else's vote. Number 3, what is the budget committee's main function? Again, from the book, page 10, it is to review, discuss, make additions or deletions, and approve the proposed budget. Upon completion of its deliberations, the committee approves the budget and sets the tax rate or amount needed to balance the budget. Number 4, after the meeting tonight, ask some more questions. In the following 2 weeks, I would encourage you to reach out to Jim, to Michelle, and ask questions you have. Jim will then compile all of our questions and send out a group email to all of us with all the questions that have been given and all the responses, and we'll all get that same email from Jim. Michelle?
And he'll post it on our website for people who are watching if they want to know what the questions are.
Very good. Another thing I encourage you to do is to, in the next 2 weeks, if you can, reach out to Manager Amber and schedule a visit to city facilities. Because a large part of our budget goes towards water, sewer, public safety, our public works department. And so you can, our airport, you can schedule an appointment to go out and meet with Cliff. Raise your hand, Cliff. Everybody meet Cliff. With Shelley, airport manager, and you can go out and see some of these facilities. And when I first went and saw them, I was like overwhelmed. I didn't fully realize what it took to produce water, to deal with sewer, to have all the equipment we needed to operate our city, especially when we get hit with terrible winter storms. So I encourage you to make an appointment and have a tour. And you will just learn a lot, and it'll help you more to understand why all this money goes into these different facilities we own as a city. Okay?
Before next session.
There'll be a 2-week gap from now till the next session, and that's the time to ask questions. You could probably make contact with them tonight and say, hey, I'd like to have a tour of these facilities, and then they can line them up for you. Okay? Number 5, can I, and this is also from page 11, can I consult with other budget committee members about details in the budget other than at the budget committee meetings? And the answer there is no. Our booklet says, discussion of the budget committee must always take place in the form of a public meeting. However, number 6 is, please talk with citizens about the budget. It is our budget. So while we can't talk to each other in the next 2 weeks about the budget, talk to citizens, talk to staff members, get input about the budget, because it's the budget that is ours for our city. Number 7, can the budget committee add or delete program services? Again, from our book, the answer is no. Standards and budget parameters are established by the governing body, which is the city council. And primarily this happens when we establish a strategic plan. The current strategic plan was adopted by the council in 2022. So as Jim is preparing the budget, he said, I regularly go back and ask myself the question, how does this support the strategic plan of the city? So the strategic plan is set by the council. The programs and services are set by council and staff working together. Our role isn't to change programs or services, but the budget committee can add or delete funding, and that comes from page 11 in the book for services. So we don't create or do away with services. We look at the funds within those services, and we can advocate to add more funds, more money, or less money to programs that have already been established. Number 8, can the budget committee determine how much a city employee gets paid? I'll bet you know the answer to that question. It's no. That's also page 11. My last point is, once the budget committee has approved the budget, can the governing body change the budget? The answer is yes. So our role is to approve a budget, send it to the city council, and then at the June council meeting, the council's prerogative is to adopt the budget. We approve, send it to the city council adopts the budget. Now the city council can change up to 10%, maximum 10% within any fund, within the budget. Or the city council can choose to not accept the budget, which means then we will have to meet again in June and scramble for about 2.5 weeks to get a budget before the end of the fiscal year, which is the last day of June. Okay, so those are my comments, and I'm sure for those of you that have been on the budget committee before, you've heard it all before, but I think it bears repeating because we only meet once a year. Okay, so with that, my next role is to oversee an election of a chair. The mayor, in the 12 years I served on the budget committee, the mayor's never been the chair of this. And I think it's wonderful that other people get to chair this meeting and the next meeting. So with that, I'm going to open up the floor. Once the chair is selected, I will swap places with that chair, and the chair will sit here and have the gavel. And then the chair's first responsibility is to elect a vice chair who will swap places with Alonzo. And then after that, the chair takes the meeting and runs with it for this meeting and the next meeting as well. Okay, so the floor is open for nominations for a chair of the budget committee. Councilor Clark.
I would like to nominate Councilor Castilla to serve as the chair of the budget committee.
All right. Additional nominations, Councilor Holt.
We don't have to second a nomination, never mind. I was just going to second that.
Do we have additional nomination for Councilor Castilla?
I would like to nominate Christina Corsi.
All right. Do we have any additional nominations? Okay, nominations are closed. We will vote in order, each get one vote. One of the majority votes gets the nomination. All right? So, all those in favor of Alonzo Castillo to be chair, please raise your hand. Got it counted?
Yep, 6.
All right, all those in favor of Christina Corsi be the chair. All right, it looks like Alonzo Castillo is the chair. So we'll do a,
Okay.
you swap and I'll just stand up for the time being because I think I'm going to move someplace else pretty quickly.
Okay. So, thank you, Councilor Clark, for that nomination. So I guess our next order of business is to nominate a vice chair. Correct? Do we have any nominations for the vice chair? Clark?
I would like to nominate Christina Corsi to serve as the vice chair.
Great. Do we have any other nominations?
Clark Kent.
We have 2 nominations. Clark Kent. Are there any others? Well, with no nominations, we'll proceed to vote. Our first nominee is Christina Corsi. All in favor for Christina Corsi, raise your hand.
Sit next to you.
You got it? Okay. And all in favor of Clark Kim? Raise your hand. Okay. All right. Well, Christina Corsi, would you like to take your spot?
Musical mirror.
Swap the name tags there. You'll pass that down and grab mine from wherever it is.
Okay, I hope we've all had some time to go over the meeting minutes from last year. Do we need to take a few more minutes for everyone to skim through these? No, not? Okay. So if not, I'm looking for a motion to approve the budget 2023 budget meeting minutes. Moved by Councilor Clark.
I would like to propose that we accept the Budget Committee meeting minutes for May 9th, 2023, and for May 23rd, 2023, as presented.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Councilor Norma Jean, seconded. Any further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. Pat, the minutes are approved. And we'll move on to line item number 5, is to receive the budget message, and I believe that is Mr. Piper.
Thank you, Chair Costia. Members of the Budget Committee, you should all have received a paper copy of the 2024-25 budget, and we also have an electronic copy out on the website now this evening for those watching at home. The budget is 119 pages long and is filled with all kinds of good information about the coming fiscal year and some additional information about the city, some details about the revenues and individual budget summaries, also some demographics that are pretty interesting. So I hope that you enjoy it thoroughly, covered it back of the budget. The budget message begins on page 10 of the document, and I'll start there with the budget message. It is my pleasure to present the City of Creswell's proposed fiscal year 2025, or FY25 budget. The budget has been prepared to satisfy the legal requirements of the State of Oregon budget law, governmental accounting standards, and the City of Creswell financial policies. The City of Creswell continues to provide essential services to the community. These services include policing, municipal court, parks, street maintenance, land use planning, building inspection services, aviation fueling and storage, water treatment and distribution, wastewater collection and treatment. The financial plan for the city is balanced and is the link between public policy, values, and available resources. In October of 2022, the City Council adopted the 5-year strategic plan. The plan reflects the hard work of the City Council and the input received from citizens. The plan directs staff for the next 5 years and therefore is incorporated in the budget document. Specific plan objectives related to robust and sustainable infrastructure are addressed in the reserve transfers from the street, water, and sewer funds. These reserves are being saved to pay for larger priority projects listed in the master planning documents. While capital projects exceed $5 million in FY '25. Grant revenues for parks, streets, airport, water, and sewer total $3.9 million of it. $3.9 million in funding for FY '25. These grants will continue to help maintain the city's infrastructure without costing the ratepayers significantly more. Other strategic objectives are addressed primarily in the general fund, where the public safety fee continues to fund additional deputies and full-time sergeant through the contract with Lane County Sheriff's Office. Further, the partnership with Regional Accelerator and Innovation Network, RAIN, will continue to help support existing and new businesses in Creswell. The FY '25 budget provides the reader with details about goals within the departmental funds and programs, along with some basic performance measures. A narrative overview is presented on the face page of the fund, followed by the corresponding financial resources and expenditures detail on the following page. The FY '25 budget is also accompanied by the City of Creswell Capital Improvement Plan, proposed some projects and capital improvements for fiscal year 2024-2025 CIP. We asked the Budget Committee to review the CIP in conjunction with the FY '25 budget. Excuse me. Inflation and retaining a proficient workforce continues to challenge the city and the businesses in our community. The Consumer Price Index Western Region as of March 2024 is still 3.6% higher than a year ago. Based on this, a 3% cost of living adjustment is recommended for FY '25. For all funds, the ending debt service reserves meet the requirements set by lenders. Ending fund balance reserves and contingency meet the minimum requirements established by city fiscal policy. Personal service highlights. An accounting technician position will be added to perform the essential tasks related to grant project management, capital asset management, and lease contract management. This position will also give more assistance to the front desk and coverage during the lunch hour. Also, the building permit tech will be reclassified as the assistant to the city manager to align with the work that is already being done by this position. This work includes writing grant applications and following up with grantors' requests for more information on grant applications. This position will still work on building permits to help on monthly court sessions, as well as fill in for the city recorder when needed. Lastly, a second water treatment plant operator position will be added for half the fiscal year. This is due to the new water treatment plant operator coming in to take over when our current operator retires. The overlap will allow for adequate training during this transition. Citywide, FY '25 personal services will increase $292,492 over the FY '24 budget. Of this increase, $127,778 is related to the cost of benefits in FY '25 compared to FY '24. Medical insurance rates will increase 10% in FY '25. Similarly, dental insurance rates will increase 7% in FY '25. General fund highlights. The taxable value of all property within Creswell city limits increased by $17.1 million to a total taxable value of $469 million. We estimate the general fund will receive approximately $1.2 million in current property taxes in FY '25. The general fund will receive $41,732 in annual interfund loan payments from the airport and urban renewal funds in FY '25. The general fund will transfer reserves to the airport fund to reimburse matching provisions of emergency operations center grants and help with operations. For FY '25, general fund reserves are budgeted to be reduced by approximately $588,000. Of this, $400,000 is operating contingency, which will likely roll back into the next year's beginning fund balance. Combined ending fund balances and operating contingency exceed $1.4 million, or 6 months of budgeted operating expenses. General fund revenue estimates for FY '25 indicate approximately a $264,297 or 9.4% increase over FY24 budget. The increase is due primarily to property taxes, grants, and the public safety fee. This year, the city anticipates another 16.5% cost increase in insurance coverage for property and liability. These rate increases continue to be driven by skyrocketing valuation of property. Administration. Temporary services of $7,500 is proposed for consulting services related to training the new city recorder. Contractual services of $10,000 for scientific surveys are also new to FY25 proposed budget. Other notable increases in materials and services include general liability and property insurance, staff training, and computer support. Increase in staff training in FY25 are related to more in-person training and new staff training. Computer support is increasing as more measures are taken to move away from a physical server and secure the workstations. A proposed $26,500 increase in capital outlay compared to the prior fiscal year budget is primarily due to updates needed to the video surveillance and access controls at City Hall. Culture and recreation. Materials and services increased $24,977 over the prior fiscal year budget. Building and equipment maintenance is primarily the reason due to non-routine scheduled maintenance in FY25. A proposed $166,200 increase in capital outlay, park and land improvements compared to the prior year is related to a grant to construct bathrooms at Robert Hughes Park, formerly South 2nd Street Park. Public safety, contractual services, police protection will increase $64,842 compared to the prior fiscal year. The cost increase is due to rising costs of the county. A rate increase of $1 in the public safety fee is recommended for FY25. Planning and land use. There are no significant changes in the department compared to the prior year. Street fund. In FY25, a transfer of $375,000 is proposed to continue funding Street Capital Improvement Reserve Fund. The increase of $255,000 compared to the prior fiscal year is related to the collection of a transportation utility fee, TUF, along with an increase in state Fed exchange grant funds in FY25. Completion of planning and design of 2nd Street between Oregon Avenue and F Street is budgeted at $210,000 in FY25. This will be funded by the remainder of the ARPA grant funds and must be committed by December 31st, 2024 and fully expended by December 31st, 2026. The construction phase of this project is projected to begin early fiscal year, or FY26. Bicycle footpath. Revenues in the fund have been transferred from the street fund to finance ongoing bicycle lane striping projects. These projects will continue this fiscal year. Building department fund. There are no significant changes in the department compared to the prior year. Even though the city is under a sewer connection moratorium on the west side, construction is still ongoing on the east side of Creswell. There are limited sewer connections available on the west side of Creswell that will likely be used by the Boulder Butte subdivision in FY25. Water fund. The water fund contains federally and state mandated programs. It is necessary that the utility rates are structured to ensure the funds are available to pay for operating expenses, ongoing capital needs, and debt service obligations. Materials and services are proposed to increase $67,964 or 12% in FY25. Of this amount, $30,000 is related to generator improvements at the treatment plant and $16,700 is related to new handheld meter readers. These increases are not expected to be repeated in coming fiscal years. An increase in capital outlay of $1.5 million is related to water distribution line relocation project and a water line distribution project at Creswell Airport. These projects will be funded by FEMA grant of $1.2 million and ARPA funds of $450,000. No water rate increase is recommended for FY25 by the Water Rate Advisory Committee due to capital grants, that were received and better fiscal results than anticipated in the prior fiscal year. Transfers of $442,146 are being made to the Water Capital Improvement Fund for current and future capital improvement plans. The Sewer Fund. The Sewer Fund is currently reserving funds to address the wastewater treatment facility. The current facility is not able to comply with the Department of Environmental Quality DEQ standards for permitting discharge into the unnamed tributary of Camiswell Creek. Recently issued DEQ limits related to ammonia and stricter permit limitations related to biochemical oxygen demand and thermal load now make the 2018 wastewater facility plan solution, estimated approximately $15 million, irrelevant. Thus, the city had to go out to bid in FY24 to update the wastewater facilities plan for a viable solution. Debt proceeds of $219,120 in FY25 will be used to pay for the wastewater facilities plan update, with $100,000 of the principal forgivable. Contracted engineers working on this plan will provide the city with a few possible solutions and cost estimates for each of them. A preliminary meeting with staff in April indicated the cost estimates could range from $3.8 million to 31.8, thank you, $31.8 million to $78.8 million. Whichever wastewater plant upgrade the city chooses to go with, it will be financed through a combination of reserves, grants, and debt issuance. Grant proceeds of $200,000 in FY25 are part of the $100 million Senate Bill 1538 Section 9 Direct Appropriation Grant to work on the wastewater system. These funds will be used for television scoping and engineering of the collection system in FY25. The remaining $800,000, additionally, pursued grant funds, will be used for construction of slip lining the collection system in FY26. A sewer rate increase of 7% was recommended for FY25 by the Water Rate Advisory Committee. Transfers of $450,843 are being made to the Sewer Capital Improvement Fund. Airport Fund. Grant awards for the airport master plan and construction of new taxi lanes and utilities for hangars construction are carried over from the prior fiscal year. Additional Emergency Operations Center EOC grants were also obtained in FY25. Total grants in FY25 are budgeted at $1.1 billion. The general fund will transfer $125,000 to the airport fund to support the operations and the city's match requirements for the AIP grants and the EOC grant matching contributions. Excuse me. A project is capital improvement reserve funds. A project is budgeted for $30,000 in FY25 to connect the generator behind City Hall to the entire building in order to power all offices and computers in the event of another power outage. Additionally, the server replacement is a carryover project budgeted at another $15,000 to completion. Lastly, $10,000 is budgeted for switches and uninterrupted power supplies for the telecommunications equipment at City Hall. Water capital improvements for FY25 include radio meters, rack modules for the water treatment plant, a share of the purchase of a backhoe, and an arsenic removal study. Also, $429,000 is related to the cost share of the water transmission line relocation project being funded by the $1.2 million in grants. Sewer capital improvements for FY25 include a share of the purchase of a backhoe. Street capital improvements for FY25 include chip sealing of North 2nd Street and a share of the purchase of a backhoe. SDC reserve funds. System development charges are held in reserve for projects in accordance with Oregon Revised Statute ORS 223 and can only be expended for the purpose specifically outlined in ORS 223.307. The system development charges, SDCs, account for revenues and expenditures for capital projects associated with development of residential and commercial growth in the community. It was thought initially that the SDCs will be affected by the moratorium on sewer connections on the west side of Interstate 5. However, new commercial construction has made up for the lack of residential housing construction. This is estimated to continue in FY25. In FY25, expenditures and improvements at Robinette Hughes Park are budgeted at approximately $212,800. A storm SDC study will be completed for approximately $7,000. Acknowledgements. We would like to thank the residents of Creswell for putting your trust in your local government leadership and for providing your input as community members as the City Council makes policy decisions and help improve the livability of our community. We'd also like to extend special thanks to Creswell professional staff for their efforts in researching and providing financial information for preparation of the budget. Lastly, we'd like to thank the City Council and citizen members of the Budget Committee for your support and willingness to serve your community. It is an honor to work with professionals and skilled city employees and community volunteers to develop and implement the FY25 budget. Respectfully submitted by myself and Manager Amber.
Alrighty, thank you, Mr. Piper. That was a lot.
Thank you.
Are you prepared to take any questions right at this time?
Sure. Yeah. Any questions on the budget message?
Okay. So I would open it up. If any of the Budget Committee members have any questions for Mr. Piper at this time on the message? Mr. Strand.
I just had one on page 13, the grant proceeds. I'm referring to the $1 million Senate bill. Is that the $1 million we were just recently granted?
Yes.
So I was a little confused about the grant proceeds constitute 200,000 of it, and then 800,000 is something different.
The project's going to be in two phases. It's the same project. The first part of the project is the engineering and also the assessment of the lines, and those are going to be about 200,000. The next step is going to be the slip lining, and that's going to be about 800,000.
So then we'll do the $1 million we got from the Senate. Some of it will be expended in this fiscal year for the engineering, and then the remainder will be expended in the next fiscal year to actually do the work.
Most likely.
Okay.
Most likely, yeah. If you look at the capital improvement plan, page 26 and 27 under sewer, the nice thing about the capital improvement plan is it goes out 5 years, so you can kind of see, okay, why are we saving money? Why is it only this much? But we know the project's going to be more. Well, like Manager Amber just answered, we're going to have multiple periods of budgets to finish these projects. The slip lining SW22, it's almost at the bottom. It's the third one up from the bottom. I'm sorry, right below it is TV scoping. So the second one from the bottom, TV scoping at 200,000. There's also some engineering involved in once they collect all that data, and they'll have to engineer what lines need to be. Sorry, so SW23 is the slip lining, or the TV scoping rather, and engineering at 200,000 in the proposed FY24-25 budget. And then above it, slip lining wastewater infrastructure is about 3 million. Of that, 800,000 is going to come from this grant, this $1 million grant. We also have another grant ask in, so we're hoping, knock on wood, we hear back some federal earmarking at the state level.
Right, we've asked Val Hoyle to carry $2 million request at the federal level.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was there a requirement to use these funds by a certain FY year?
The $1 million does have a date on it. Huh?
5 years?
No, I think it's 12 months. So we've got to move pretty fast on it. The federal ones haven't even been discussed yet, so we don't know what the end date will be on it or if we'll be successful.
can almost guess what I'm going to ask about. So on the COLA, I just want to know if we have always, I just don't recall, the last couple of years, did we use the Western CPI? Because I remember a lot of conversation about Social Security, or Social Security retirement COLA in the last couple of years. So did we rely on the Western CPI the last 2 years, or were we using another index?
Yeah, we rely on the Western CPI. That was a recommendation by the Department of Labor, who also used to use the Portland CPI, and they got rid of the Portland CPI altogether, and they recommended that everybody start using Western CPI for labor.
When was this?
Gosh, when did they discontinue Portland? It was about the time that,
Yeah, about 2014, 2015.
this when Portland economy just went
Yeah.
crazy, and it didn't really represent the whole Western Coast.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Councilor Clark?
Yeah, thank you for this. This is fantastic information. One of the questions that I guess will come up somewhere, or maybe even be addressed in the presentation, is you talked about for example, the public safety fund. So the rate increase of $1 is in the public safety fee recommended for fiscal year 25. And then that there was also in the sewer fund, a sewer rate increase of 7% that was recommended by the Water Rate Advisory Committee. And so I was wondering, and you don't have to address it right now, but if you could address, again, on average, about how much of an increase per person is that? Or not per person, but I guess per
utility customer.
Per utility customer.
That's a great question. I wouldn't have it right off the top of my head, but I do have it on my handy dandy laptop, so yeah, I can pull it up. I don't have it in my presentation.
Are we going to wait for the?
No, he's just going to bring the budget presentation up, so.
Oh, okay.
You had a question.
So, yeah, I did. Where's it at now? Now I've forgotten, see. Oh, yeah, the public safety increase last year was, I think, 7.6, if I remember correctly, percent. In this one, you're just mentioning the dollar value, and I'm curious if you know what percent increase that was.
Yeah, it was, I believe it's 5% increase, and which was exactly what the contract increase was.
And then how much did we, do you recall how much we increased the public safety fee last year? We can look it up later.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it was significant.
Okay.
Budget Committee Member Joshua.
Are there detailed explanations as to where we got the bids for some of these numbers on improvements, continued improvements for generators, networking, server upgrades? Is that in here as well?
Governmental purchasing requires us to do 3 bids, so we would have 3 bids available for these estimates, yes.
Are these available for us to review?
If you would like to come down and make an appointment, we can walk you through as many files as you want to see.
Yeah, I think our construction numbers come, in our master plans come from our engineers. And so they're just using industry standards.
But if you want to know where we got the numbers for the generator repairs, we should be able to pull that up for you. But you should know that we do have a very rigorous metric on how we do expend money on projects. They may be an estimate in the budget, but by the time they go into the ground or whatever infrastructure they're going into, there will be additional information. We will have to go out to bid. We will have to pay Davis Bacon. We'll have to we'll have to jump through a lot of different hoops before the money's ever spent.
So there exists a contingency in every single bid just in case for overages. Thank you.
If you could explain for me, there's a sentence there in the sewer fund, debt proceeds of $219,120 in fiscal year 25 will be used to pay for the wastewater facilities plan update with $100,000 of the principal forgivable. Can you just explain that sentence?
Sure. So the city has applied for clean water state revolving funds, and they offer loans, right now they have a program to loan money to municipalities at just under 1%. It's like 0.99%. And they also have some money to forgive a portion of those loans. So once the project's completed, they can forgive it. So I think they want to see projects get done. They want to see them completed, and the incentive is to also help the municipalities out. So this is a loan fund that we're currently working on right now. It'll probably go to the city council at early like July meeting. Likely is when we'll see it and get finalized.
The state will make the final determination on how much of it is forgivable, and it will generally be based on economics.
Budget committee's strat.
On page 14, under SDC Reserve Fund, second paragraph said it was thought that SDCs would be affected by the moratorium on sewer connections. However, new commercial construction has made up the lack of residential housing. What's the new commercial construction?
That would be the assisted living and Taco Bell predominantly. I don't know if any houses are going in on the east side. The one SDC that will be impacted is the Park SDC because it doesn't come off of commercial or industrial. So it only comes off of residential. So the degree to which we're unable to assess a residential SDC, we will not be able to put money in our parks.
So a follow-up question, when we get SDCs, that goes into an SDC account.
Yes.
Correct.
And it can be used for anything that is legal to use SDC money for, whether the money comes from the east side or the west side. It doesn't matter which side it comes from, it goes into the same pot and can be used. Except you said that only residential SDCs can be used for park purchase and improvements.
Only residential builds contribute to park SDCs because SDCs are intended to increase capacity and so of a given infrastructure. So a commercial doesn't need increased park capacity and industrial doesn't need increased park capacity, but residential does. So it is assessed against residential. So the degree to which we are unable to build residential, that is being impacted.
Right.
But the other two, the streets SDCs are the same whether you're, I mean, they're assessed commercial, industrial, residential. Sewer SDCs are commercial, industrial, residential. Water SDCs are commercial, industrial, and residential. And sewer or stormwater fees are residential, industrial, and commercial.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Joshua.
On the bicycle footpath fund, I was just curious about the cost, any details, percentages, what amount of revenue was moving over. I was trying to find it and I just couldn't quite find it yet.
It's a little fund.
It's a little fun. It's 1% of the state highway tax.
Yeah.
So I believe this year's budget is $4,500. We're projecting $450,000 in street, so 4,500. 4675, excuse me, 4675 for the proposed 2024-25 budget.
And that's used for maintaining bike paths,
Yeah. And
the painting and all of that.
Mr. Isaac.
Sorry, I'm just gonna harken back to another question there. I was curious on the CPI versus the COLA there. Just, are you doing performance evaluations? I'm assuming, is the COLA a baseline, or people, if they have performance evaluations, make less than that, or great performance evaluations make more than that?
No, in order to stay relevant in the market, every July 1st, we give a COLA. Beyond that, if they have a merit increase, they will receive that in December. So
And
they're
that's somehow-
separated.
Is that somehow attached to the budget for the year? Is that within that discretionary?
No, it's budgeted.
Yeah, we'll actually, at the city council meeting for the budget adoption, we have a salary table that's also adopted. And it shows the 12 steps for each position.
In terms of the airport fund, I do apologize, I'm curious about it, I'm trying to find more information on it. It looks like the bulk of the airport fund is covered by grants, is that correct?
A large percentage of it is, yes. A very large percentage.
Is there a reason for that? Like, is it significant?
Well, the airport is a enterprise fund, so it runs like a business. So the money that comes into it pays for it. They don't contribute, it doesn't contribute back to the general fund. It's a standalone fund. So it has to figure out how it's going to support itself. And a major way is to, stay current, and to stay current requires funding. So Shelley has been exemplary in getting grants to make sure our airport is one of the finest general aviation airports in Oregon.
It really does look great, just looking at the numbers.
She does a fantastic
That's
job.
true. Yeah, also, I might add to that is it is a part of the overall infrastructure, albeit by air, but it's part of the infrastructure of transportation for the state and for outside the state even.
Yeah, it provides a couple of different things, actually. It is becoming more and more a regional point for emergency preparedness because it's well situated in the state, and the state is recognizing that, and that's one of the reasons why, Shelley can go and say, well, I want this justified because we're building this airport so you can use it, in the Cascadia. Another thing it is it's recreation for our community and others, and then again, it's part of the transportation modes that we have available. So it really has a broad spectrum of benefits. Plus, there are businesses out there. So, it's economic development as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Strand?
Just to follow up, Shelley got me a tour at the airport a month ago. And along the way, introduced me to several businesses out there. And I really wasn't familiar with the businesses that were operating out of there. And as one example, I got to go into one hangar and meet with two of the businesses that are operated by guys about your age, who are from this area, who got their first introduction to aviation at our airport and were mentored by other business people. And eventually, literally took over their businesses when these guys retired. In the one guy's hangar, he had a World War II fighter plane, I think.
N3N.
See, I don't know what that means, but
It's a Navy version of, now that I say that.
like a training plane or something?
It's a biplane that they used in World War II. So the Navy had the Stearman and the N3N. I got it backwards. So it was either Stearman or N3N. They're almost identical, but different forces used them. And that's how they would fight. They're open cockpit, they're a ball, they're great airplanes. And this one is in pristine shape.
So if you ask for a tour, you just might be able to meet some of the businessmen. So this guy had one in there, he bought it for a race, and then COVID hit. They called off the race, but he kept it, it's in wonderful condition. He had me climb into the cockpit instead, which was fun. And they took me across the way to another hangar with another guy, about your age, Joshua, who happens to have one of the first planes he built that is in the Smithsonian on exhibit, because he built it for a guy who was a stunt pilot, and the stunt pilot used it throughout his career, never had an accident, and when he retired from his career, the Smithsonian asked for it. So I was fascinated to see just two of the businesses out there that are going operations, that are producing family-level incomes for these people right at our airport, and I didn't know about it. So if you can get a tour of the airport, get a tour of the airport. Just an encouragement.
Thank you.
Please hold.
How are merit raises funded? Is there a carve out in the budget for that?
Well, it's part of the personal costs, yeah.
The personnel, so is it predetermined when we come sit at this table, how much you're going to spend on merit raises in a fiscal year?
There is a fund of money that we can use for merit raises, yeah.
Okay,
Does that answer, I think that answers.
I think that answers my question, yeah. I wasn't sure how to ask it.
And Joshua?
Sorry about that. In terms, just following up on that, noticing the Western Region CPI, for March 2024, you had noted that it was 3.6% higher. So based on that, a 3% cost of living adjustment. Do you always round it to a percentage like 3 or 4 and just round down?
Not necessarily, but I think, or hope, or knock on wood, that it trends down between March and July 1 when we actually receive those COLAs. I don't want to overshoot and set it right at 3.6, and then July 1 it drops down to like 3.1 or 3. I don't really see it going below 3. In fact, the Fed has kind of admitted that they're not going to see 2% like they had hoped for 2 years ago. But I think 3 is pretty much baseline.
Okay. In the case of,
I'm sorry, in sharing the information with other city managers, a lot of them are going with 4 this year. But I feel good at the 3 because we will be doing a salary survey, not in this coming year, but the following year. And if we do have any catch-up to do, we can do it then.
it'd be in a realignment.
People won't be that far behind, yeah.
Thanks.
Great questions, budget committee members.
You said that you didn't see them going below 3%, but I feel like that they came in at 2.6 on something, right?
I haven't heard anything
Okay,
below.
I'll look it up. I thought that, yeah, I thought it was, okay.
A lot of cities are going back to the before COVID rate increase, or COLA increases, and it's generally around 4%. That's what they negotiate for, so.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
Just as a reminder, what was the COLA last year that we approved?
Last year was 4%.
And the year before was 7.3, 7.1?
It was right at 7.
Right, 7.
Was it?
Yeah, I think so.
Could
Because
be
there
in
wasn't
the-
one the year
Could be in
before
the
that.
minutes.
Yeah, because it was 0 the year before,
Yeah.
because of COVID messed everything up.
Yeah. Just writing notes.
Are there any other questions at this time? Joshua?
Yeah, one final one on the culture and recreation section with the Robinette Hughes Park. You had said that there was a proposed increase in capital outlay, park and land improvements compared to the prior year. Is this already completed or yet to be completed?
The Robinette Hughes Park is being completed in phases because it's very expensive. And like I said, we don't have a lot of SDCs to put into it. So the first year, the playground facilities were put in. The second year, the infrastructure to put the splash pad was put in, but because of the fires and things like that, we couldn't actually complete the splash pad. This year, we'll complete the splash pad, and we're also we've put forth a grant request from the state for money to build bathrooms. So it's kind of being put together a little bit at a time.
So there's a grant request currently in place for it, seeing that there. For how much? For the grant?
What was the grant request? 240,000?
The project's 282, the grant funding is going to be 169.2. And that,
169 too?
yeah, if you look at the capital improvement plan, pages 12 and 13, you can see it laid out there.
We played with a lot of numbers before we submitted it.
When do we hear back if that's something that's been approved or denied?
Yeah, we won't probably hear for quite some time. It takes the state a while. Yeah, so
Would it be during this fiscal year?
it would be nice if it was. Yeah, but
Would we be proceeding with the work regardless of the grant?
we will not be able to proceed with work if we do not have the grant. We will be able to complete the splash pad because we do have the SDCs for that. But we will not begin the bathrooms at all if we don't get the grant.
Yeah, there is on page 13, there's $200,000 in second part development. And if you drill down into it, it's a gazebo essentially.
Someday.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll have grass and it'll have trees and it'll have picnic benches. It'll be a nice place for you to bring your children for birthday parties, you know, because they can play in the sprinklers and stuff like that. That's our vision, but it doesn't look like that yet.
And that's part of the 800,000 projected future?
Oh, projected future down here. That's actually a land purchase
Oh.
for a new community center.
Oh, okay, sorry, that was a separate section.
Sometimes we just do it as we get money.
Yeah, and that future column, we know we have a land purchase that's coming up. We just want to keep it on the radar. So it's not scheduled, but it's projected future so that we don't forget about it.
And we don't have $800,000 sitting around to purchase it. That's not what that says. It says we know in the future we better start putting money aside so that we can buy a piece of land.
And for those futures, on the estimates that you have there, is that projected increases, or is that just current value?
On land?
Yeah.
It's current value.
Okay, so actually will probably be higher than.
Oh, yeah. It'll be adjusted as we go. The CIP will adjust annually. Things will change and shift on it because things get reprioritized or we don't get grants or things like that. So the CIP is a plan again. The budget is a lot more definite about what's going to happen this year.
Okay, so that Storm SDC study completed for 7,000, that will be this year?
Yes, yeah, that's actually to.
That's the next one, sorry.
Yeah, that's to finish. We have a consultant that helped us with our SDCs. We now have our stormwater master plan completed, so that engineering information can be used to formulate a fee now. And so that work has to be done before it can go to the council and propose a fee, a storm utility fee in the future.
And part of that 200,000 that we were saying was that estimate of $212,800 that we were just discussing prior.
Okay.
Thank you.
Budget committee members, any last question? Not, I have two. Sure. Very quick, and I'll try to make them quick. The earlier, Michelle, you mentioned the 1 million had to be, there was a 12-month sunset clause. So where will that go? What's going to happen with that?
We're going to spend it.
Any particular
Yes.
area that it's going?
Yes, it's going into the sewer system, and $200,000 of that is going to go into the cleaning and video taping and assessing the quality of our system, kind of a little colonoscopy for our collection
Gotcha.
system.
Okay.
And then $800,000 of that will get us started on the slip lining. We estimate it's going to be $3 million overall, but the $800,000 will go into that.
Okay, thank you, Manager Amber. And the last question, on page 11, of course, I don't know anything about water treatment plant operator, but it seems like, so there's gonna be a 6 months overlap for the training there? That seems like a lot of time for that.
I can let Cliff speak to this a little bit because it really has to do with their certifications. And we have to make sure that they have the training to be certified to run the plant. And so that transfer of information does take some time.
Oh, I see. So the new person they don't just automatically come with these certifications? Okay,
He may need some tweaking and things like that.
okay.
And he wouldn't necessarily know everything about our plant, although we're very excited about the person that we hope we can extend this to because he really does know a lot about our plant. So we got really fortunate. If he hadn't come our way, we would be in a world of hurt.
Good enough, okay. Thank you. So if there's no further questions, I would encourage you, Budget Committee members, to keep asking questions via email.
I have one question, and it's related to the wastewater treatment plant. Is that going to increase our ability to add more hookups to the west side? We're investing in that.
The $1 million project?
Yeah.
15, I think we get.
More or 15 total?
15 more.
Okay, that's what I was hoping the answer was going to be.
$1 million for 15 hookups.
Well, it's got to be done, but they're doing it in increments to encourage us to keep working on this.
Okay, I think Counselor Holt, you had one
Just
last
a-
question, and we'll wrap this up and move on to the next.
Clarification question, is that 15 per year?
No,
Okay.
that's 15 on the list. And I think the next step is like 5.
Okay.
So, yeah, no, we got 15 to set us up. Cliff did 1 year's worth of work, and I think he got another 15. And then I think, Cliff, I'm not sure.
Well, I was really hoping it just increased our yearly allotment. So-
Just by 15.
But only, that's just 15 in general, we won't have 15 available every year.
No, it's
Okay.
based on what projects we complete.
Okay.
Okay, if you don't already have their finance director and Manager Emberg's emails, you can get them after the meeting. And so we're going to move on to line item number 6, which is presentation. And I believe that is Mr. Piper again.
Thank you. Yeah, so I read you a very dry letter, hopefully filled with lots of information, but I prefer presentations. I appreciate the questions, to kind of get the story out instead of just, nerdy technical numbers and percentages. I wanted to give you at least a presentation of what the budget really looks like overall, very high level. I don't know why, but I love this picture. Maybe because I remember this car back in my childhood, but it's a picture of downtown Creswell back in the day, when things were building up to where we're at today, and part of that buildup is collecting those reserves for big projects to keep building infrastructure in the city and replacing infrastructure as it comes to end of life. So we have these beginning fund balances, and these are monies that are carried over from previous fiscal years. We start the year with 19.7 million in beginning fund balances. System development charges we talked about, that's 8.6 million of that 19.7 million. These are things for water, sewer, park, streets, stormwater. Here's a graphical presentation of total beginning fund balances and how they break down by type. STC funds, as we talked about, the biggest type, 42%. And then our capital projects, these are reserve funds that we're saving for those big ticket items, another 28%. So, we're looking at 70% of the budget is for big ticket items as far as the reserves go. 8% in beginning fund balances, general fund, 3% street fund, 1% building fund, 8% of the beginning fund balances is water, sewer, and 1% for airport. We keep those reserves, those reserves at the end of the fiscal year. We take in all our resources, we have our expenditures for operations. And then at the end, we should have ending fund balances that, as you'll note in the budget at the back, there's some fiscal policies the city's adopted years ago to keep ending fund balance reserves on page 111, there's a resolution adopted back in 2014 to keep fund balance reserves at no less than 30% of operating expenditures in the general fund, and for the enterprise funds, 25% of operating expenditures for the year. And that's so that there's enough money there to carry on should there be interruption in revenue.
But not so much that we're not getting our money's worth. We don't want money just sitting there. We want money working for the people. So that's what this policy is about. It tells us what the correct amount is to maintain in reserves.
So for the general fund, there's a decrease in ending fund balance budgeted of $588,000, but as I mentioned in the budget message, $400,000 of that is contingency. So we have to hold that contingency, and we also have a contingency reserve requirement of 15% of operating expenditures for those moments where we didn't plan on something happening, i.e. a disaster, a snowstorm, that was 5 years prior, ice storm last year. So barring an emergency or something that we didn't foresee, that contingency will just roll back into ending fund balance. And so really the change is 188,000, and of that 125 is going to the airport to help with those grant matches and to help with operations. 15,000 to the tennis court resurface and parks equipment that we have to purchase. There's $20,000 access and surveillance upgrades in City Hall, along with some $10,000 security enhancements in the lobby. These are things that have come up in recent years. Post-COVID, security's become more of an issue at City Hall, unfortunately. We've seen a spike in incidents, let's say, at City Hall that are not the norm. Also, we have a $10,000 computer replacements for Windows 11. Thank you, Microsoft. They end support every few years until your operating system is no longer supported. So we have some computer replacements that we're phasing in to get all those Windows 10 machines out. And then $8,000 tablet replacements for the City Council. We had that in last year's budget. We're just rolling it forward. We're going to wait until after elections and purchase some new tablets and get them out. We're looking at some larger screens this time. They were little bitty ones last time, so thank you, Councilor Holt. Yes, we will get you larger screens. They do come in larger sizes now. Capital project funds, increase in ending fund balance of about 460,000. Partly enlarged to the 1.2 million in transfers in from other funds for reserves, and some decent interest earnings right now. Our monies are making decent money with interest rates being where they're at. $218,000 increase in all those capital project funds is projected. We have a $25,000 replace server and add switches and UPS, that uninterrupted power supply to our telecom equipment. We learned a lot being out of power for a week here at City Hall that we need to be more resilient. Also, the generator upgrade, 30,000. The generator itself is actually powerful enough to power all of City Hall. And I think for cost reasons, I don't know, I wasn't here at the time, but I'm assuming for cost reasons, we only wired it to one of the five. I think there's 5 fuse panels. And so it's wired to one that controls the servers and the front desk computers, but like Michelle's office wasn't powered, my office wasn't powered. So we want to.
There was only one workstation that was powered.
Yeah, it was not fun. I think we all kind of fought over that workstation too. Being down for a week, we realized that we really need to get the entire City Hall wired, and that requires electrician and permits to get that done. Also, we're still working on the arsenic removal study or project to remove arsenic from the wells and bring that water into our water supply. Radio meters, we're continuing to get rid of all the manual meters and just have them read electronically now. And then there's some rack modules that need replaced at the water plant. Also, there's that transmission line relocation. That's our match, that 478,000. We're getting a project that's $1.7 million. That's a priority project in our master plan. That transmission line actually goes under private property, so it really needs to be moved over in the right of way. I'm not sure how that got located there, but it's something that we've inherited.
And that's a brick grant from FEMA.
Right, brick grant from FEMA. They basically, I think they cover about 75% of the costs. The city picks up 25%, and every bit helps.
Costs estimated 4 years ago.
Yeah, we'll see what it ends up. coming in at. And then the chip seal project on North Second Street, I had to double take and ask Cliff which side of Second Street, because we've been chip sealing every year a portion of the roads to keep them from deteriorating to a point where we have to actually replace them, where South Second Street is going to be, there's going to be improvements, but it's also, the roadbed is really, really bad. I understand that it has to be basically tore down and rebuilt. As opposed to the roads that we chip seal will last quite a bit longer and for a fraction of the price when it comes to looking at reconstructing the roads. Also, the backhoe is budgeted $180K, and I already mentioned the transfers in. STC funds, increase of $320,000. We have the parks improvements going out, but we also have STCs coming in, not necessarily to the parks. This is all STC funds. And then we're earning pretty decent money right now on these funds as well, $320K projected interest earnings. So the general fund, how do we fund the major fund of the city? The requirements for the general fund is $2.7 million. As you can see, 50% of that is public safety, and that's not unusual. That's pretty normal for a city. 23% of it is culture and recreation, with 18% admin and 9% planning. Property taxes, they're coming in pretty steady. We have about 1.2 million projected to come in fiscal year 24-25.
I just want to point out real quick, the property taxes are 1.2 million, which pays for public safety. I don't know if you're catching that in the picture, but 50% of our costs are public safety. That 1.2 million is public safety. So all of this taxes are going to safety.
Great point.
Just like to point that out.
Not fully funding it though, right?
Not fully funding it, no.
No, because we have other programs that we have to provide, and so thus we have the public safety fee in lieu of having more of a property tax base. Franchise fees do help, $394,000 from our public utilities. Thank you. Through agreements for using our public right-of-way as a way to get to their customers, we collect 5% off their gross revenues. Other general fund other general fund revenues include the liquor tax, gas, cigarette tax, state shared revenues. That's about $200,000 combined. Motel tax and telecom tax, another $95,000. The public safety fee will generate $567,000. So big help. Still only a portion of what we need to fund policing. The RTMP, the Rural Tourist Marketing Program that we use to promote tourism, $30K. Court fines, $35,000. Most of which goes back to the state and county. So it's more of a public service than a revenue generator, but we do have some revenues to cover the cost of those, and it encourages enforcement when codes and such are broken in the city. Then we have license and permits of building use. This is like the fees for using the community center, $24,000. And then interest, about $70K, and interfund loans to be received, $42K. This is the loans to the Urban Renewal Agency and to the airport. General fund programs, personal services are going to increase by $55,000, 8.9% in FY25, and that's partially because we're adding the staff and reclassifying another staff to manage the capital grants. But we also have this medical increase. Medical insurance hasn't increased in prior years during COVID, for example, but now we're starting to see those increases start to come out. Now medical's going up 10%, and dental also a 7% increase. Materials and services increase of 7% or only 0.3%. Like I said, we're adding a scientific surveys service that can do better survey of the public and get us results back on questions that are asked all the time. In planning, we're adding temp help for $7,500 to train the city recorder. We got a new city recorder, and she needs some training. We're bringing in some professional services to help with that. Holt Park Playground, we got a repair bill for about $20K. And I can have Cliff speak to it if you have questions about that. The Lane County Sheriff's Office contract increase of $74.8 thousand, and then all this being offset by winter damages about $90,000 this year for the ice storm. Hope to not repeat, knock on wood, next year. So really pretty close to net neutral on materials and services year over year.
And we will be applying for the 75% reimbursement from FEMA, but that can take a long time. There are people who are still waiting for that reimbursement for the fires at the McKenzie, so.
Yeah, the winter snowstorm just closed last year, and that was 5 years ago, so, yeah. It's a lot of work. Yeah, it's really sad. The street fund, state highway use revenues took a little bit of a dip in 23-24, but back up in 24-25, I think partly to some legislation that changed. The gas tax is kind of, with the electric cars and more fuel efficient cars, it's declining. So things that are I kind of see through my crystal ball that will take the place of that is they're raising vehicle registration fees, as we've all seen in recent years, to kind of make up for that gap. And so the street fund revenues are projected by the Oregon Department of Revenue, and they actually spell them out city by city. So that number's pretty good as far as what we're projecting to receive in street funds for 24-25, or really any of the fiscal years. They do a pretty good job of projecting that out. Total personal services increase of our total personal services and material and services of $414,000, and we're going to see about a $28,000 increase in FY25, and that's adding staff to manage reporting projects, grants, and assets. Something we really need to look at, and we're already seeing some payoff in the grants by getting somebody to apply for the grants. And as we get these grant funds in, we're going to have to also manage them to make sure that we're in compliance with the granting agencies. They ask for lots of support, and they continue to ask questions, which is good. Good. COLA, medical, and dental increases, we discussed those already. Materials and services increase of about $10,000. It's mainly in street maintenance and street sweeping costs. $210,000 for 2nd Street, Oregon Avenue, F Street. The planning design work will continue on into the FY25, and we'll use the ARPA funding that we have available that we have to expend to finish that up. Bicycle footpath, again, we spend money on continued striping and maintenance. Occasionally we have a street project. You'll see in future years when we actually do the construction of the street project, we'll get to use some of the monies in the bicycle footpath to create those bicycle lanes, so a portion of the pavement and of those street improvements. Building department fund, we talked about new residential housing is kind of just gone downhill since the moratorium. I think that's part of it. Also, the just buildable lands inventory and housing crisis, the cost of housing, it's all kind of playing a role.
Costs, the list goes on, right?
Right? Housing's just outrageous. So what we're seeing is like this steady increase in all other, which is like your HVAC, your electrical, your remodeling, additions, people are just doing that in lieu of, moving to that bigger house or that next house. So we're seeing still some business going there, but personal services are going to decrease by 25,000. A lot of that has to do with having skilled staffing. We have somebody who's actually trained to be a permit technician, and she has created efficiencies. She's looked at our program and really dug in and created some efficiencies. A lot of these other permits that I talked about, the HVAC, electrical, they're called over-the-counter permits. So construction companies can go in and use the e-permitting system to just help themselves and check out online. There's still some work on the back end to see how those permits are progressing. So Angela, our permit tech, she's still following up with them, but really we've created some efficiencies in the building department, along with the fact that residential housing's kind of gone down currently. Materials and services, an increase of 6,000. There's some increase in contract for inspection services. These are the inspection services that were asked on top of the Cottage Grove inspection services. So this is another third party that was asked to come in on a development. Excuse me. The water fund, personal services and materials and services for FY25 equals 1.5 million. It's a $200,000 increase. And 50,000 of that's the plant operator in transition and staff to help manage and report on projects, grants, and assets. About 14,000 of that increase is the COLA. 47,000 is related to the benefits. Of the benefits, the 13,000 increases is just from the medical insurance increases. We talked about we talked about the generator at City Hall. We also have generator improvement projects going on at the public works facilities. So we have water is getting a generator project as well. 50K of the increase is insurance, chemicals, small equipment. Handheld meter readers need to be replaced. Bless you. We've been working on these handheld meter readers that come in and connect to the computer, and then they download the usage to our billing software. And they're at end of life. They're a Windows mobile device, and Windows doesn't even do Windows Mobile anymore. So we're hoping for different technology, better technology, and it's just time to replace those handhelds. Increase of 1.5 million in capital outlay. We talked about that transmission line relocation project near the water tower. And we have water lines going in at the airport to have water, and we have sewer, and now we're gonna have water at all the hangars, which would be nice. Yeah, might even promote a little economic development out there with some businesses who in the past have asked, hey, I'd like to move there, but do you have water and sewer? We've had to say no. But soon to be yes. Transfers equals the audited revenues over expenditures. So we take that number after the fiscal year and we just transfer it over to reserves. There's no sense in leaving it in the water fund or the sewer fund in the next case. Sewer fund, we're expecting another $200,000 increase in the sewer fund for personal services. 35K is that plant operator in transition, and again, a staff member to help with managing project grants and assets. 12K related to COLA, 37,000 related to benefits, 11,000 of that is just the insurance increases alone for medical. 200K TV scoping and engineering collection to be grant funded, and a DEQ 1% interest loan to complete the wastewater facilities master plan update. And transfers again equal the revenues over expenditures for the last audited fiscal year. Airport fund, personal services and materials and services equals 509K. Increase of about 24,000 compared to fiscal year 24. And mainly, it's just the increase in insurance and fuel costs. The good thing about increasing fuel costs is that we can sell those for markup And so that's generated revenue to help the airport. $500K for the airport master plan, funded by the FAA AIP grant at 90%, and then also the ODA core grant will take 9% of that. And we got new taxi lanes and utilities, hopefully. They've kind of been on hold, and Shelley can speak to that if you want more details. We had to make sure that we weren't affecting the salmon downstream. I think she's still working that out with our engineers and NEPA? NIMS, sorry.
National Marine Forestry Services, or Fishery Services.
Yeah, so unfortunately, we had to carry it over to the next fiscal year because we can't get the project going until we clear that hurdle. And $175,000 in EOC equipment, a gate, runway crosses, balloon lights, barricades, and a container to hold this stuff, funded by ODA core grants at 90%. And then some cameras that were in this fiscal year that are carrying over. We found that security cameras at the airport is very complicated. We've brought in our IT engineers, and we've gone out and got our bids, and we're kind of looking at it like, okay, now what? They're all extremely complicated systems, and we just need the time to make sure that we're making the right decision, getting the best system for the least money, as you would expect. So that's going to carry over. We won't complete that by the end of this fiscal year. All right, I kind of got into numbers at the end there. I hopefully painted a picture of what's different in the budget this year as opposed to the prior year. Otherwise, the budget's pretty status quo from last year. Are there any questions that the budget committee has?
Yeah, so you were just that very last part, right? You said your IT engineers, do you guys have people on staff doing IT?
No.
We
Contract workers?
don't.
Well, Jim, he does our IT on staff, but we do contract.
Okay. Are these like local contractors, or are they somewhere?
Our Eugene.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they do a lot of making sure that we don't get hacked. They have all that responsibility.
And so if we had questions about that, it's something I could get with you about, like bids and just seeing what that looks like historically.
Sure.
Yeah, we have what they call an MSP. You might have heard of the Managed Service Provider, yes, through an MSA, right, our man. That we went out to bid for a few years back. And that project keeps carrying forward. We just have a lot of changes constantly, and you're aware of the IT industry is like always changing.
I'm also an SSP, so I'm definitely aware, and the numbers have me very suspect.
Yes.
Very suspect.
Yeah.
Another one?
Yeah. On the bicycle footpath, I saw it was 3,200 continual annual striping and maintenance, but when we were looking at it before, the amount that had been brought in was 4,675. Are we just not allocating all of it?
Correct. Yeah, we'll hold some of that back because a good example of that was when we did the A Street project. We were able to expend about 15 grand, and I think it was 15 grand in that project for the amount of pavement that was for the bike path itself. So, and it really helped with that overall street project.
Awesome. Thank you.
Derek, so the plant operator in transition is like $85,000 between those two? And why is that an extra cost for that? Or is there somebody else being trained in that?
Right, we're actually gonna have two plant operators on at that time. One of them's getting ready to retire, unfortunately. Mike Howard's been with us for
20 years? 1 year less than Shelley?
3 years.
I'm at 25, so.
There's a lot of institutional knowledge to pass off there.
And he was kind enough to let us know his last day quite a bit in advance so that we could go out and try and find someone so we would have the overlap.
I guess I had another question on the transmission line relocation. Was, you said FEMA was involved, was it like a hazard to a dwelling or?
It actually, our lines run in people's backyards right now, and that is not best practice. The best practice is to have them in the street. It's also the safest practice. So FEMA is helping us realign our transmission lines so that in an emergency, that the damage will be to the street, not to somebody's house.
Sure. This is kind of a follow-up to Dan's question. And this is the water fund and sewer fund. We're talking about the plant operator in transition. Then it says, and staff to help manage reporting of projects, grants, and assets. Is that referring to the person who works here that is transitioning into a new role of grants and managing?
No, that's going to be a brand-new position that reports directly to Jim. We found out this year that Jim's plate overflows, and with all of the grants that we've been doing, he's been getting like 1 day to do a grant report, and that's not fair. So we're going to bring somebody in who's going to handle all of the grants, and that person is going to come from different funds.
So the 85,000 reflected in those two refers to the new person in transition, plus the person that's being brought in to work here in the office to manage all the grants.
Plus all their benefits.
Okay, so it refers to two positions. That was kind of my clarification question.
That's not salary.
I think that's just salary, actually.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
You didn't put in?
I didn't put the benefits in, but, yeah, I just put in just their wages alone. Benefits, of course, will be
On top of that.
on top of that.
There's line items below that talk about 14K COLA, 47K benefits. Is that referring to?
The benefits are gonna be, that increase in benefits are also gonna include the benefits of the new people, yeah.
Okay.
That's a good point,
Okay, so we're talking about two people here.
yeah.
Okay.
As well as the people who are already in there.
Right. For the benefit increases?
Right.
Yeah,
For the benefit people.
I think the amount of work this person doing with the new grants might, the amount of work the new person's doing in writing grants might actually pay for it in increased grants for the city. Is that a fair assumption?
This person is not going to be a grant writer.
Oh, I see. Oh, no.
No, they're going to, there is a lot to doing grants. There's finding a grant. There's knowing what you need first. Then there's finding a grant to match that need. Then there's writing the grant. And then there's working with the organization if there's anything to work with. Then there's receiving the grant. And then there's spending the grant. And then there's reporting. And this person is going to do reporting and a little bit of help on receiving and oversight. But it's not going to be the person who oversees grants 100%. I mean, Shelley is still going to have her plate pretty full with grants. But this is the other grants.
Yeah, these are gonna be the grants related to water, sewer and streets primarily. And some
And parks.
Some parks, yeah.
If we get the park grant.
Yeah, and
Anything else we can get a grant for.
so this person will be more on the back end, like Manager Amberg said, reporting back to the granting agencies, okay, what did we spend the money on? Here's all the invoices that made up this asset that we built.
There is so much reporting.
And then they'll also track that asset for annual depreciation and help on the finance side with reporting, both for the grants and the audit. Also, they'll be keeping an eye on the leases that we have. So
Contracts,
the contracts.
contracting dates.
And,
We need somebody to do that very much.
right, there's a lot of spinning plates.
I know that she writes the ones for the airport, but there are other grants that we're asking for. Who writes those grants?
Right.
Who does?
It's going to be Angela. She's been going and getting training, and she's going to step up. She's not going to be, it's not a new person. She's just we're going to finally recognize the work that she does, and she's going to be assistant to the city manager.
Okay.
Right. The permit technician position, there's a similar position at City of Cottage Grove, and I'm gonna use their stuff, their job description, and
Not for permit, for finance.
for finance, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Accounting technician, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, not permit technician,
Not permit.
accounting technician.
Yeah.
This position's pretty common in larger cities where they have a lot of grant revenues. We are just coming into a period where there's a lot of grant opportunities. We also have a lot of capital asset needs right now. And we're gonna have to really step up the work to get that funding secured and report on that funding.
And there is so much now that's involved in auditing that, when Jim is working with the auditors, he has no time available. And as soon as that's over, he starts working on the budget. So, not that he's not still doing a lot of finance stuff, but we just need to take some things off of his plate.
Hand over here first, Mr. Stroud.
How many total employees do we have in the city?
Right now, 19.
Yeah, 19.77.
And that's with 9 in Public Works.
Okay.
2 at the airport, the rest at City Hall.
I do like that we run lean and mean. I don't like to be bored, so I do like having lots to do. It makes the time pass quicker. The worst thing is to be like not having stuff to do, in my opinion, but we're to a point where we really need to start thinking about adding staff. We've kind of hit the top end of efficiencies. People actually need to do training. That's starting to get more and more mandated that training be done, and you have to kind of pull them off helping at the front desk, say, or,
But this new
Find that
person
time.
will allow us to open up the hour for lunch that we've been closed. So we will be open from 9 to 5.
yeah.
Well, I noticed I just caught that page 101, that we've actually gone backwards in terms of staff in the last 4 years. We were up to 20.7, now we're at 19.7.
We did. We were contemplating with COVID hitting.
Who's the .7?
The .7 happens because we have a judge who's
Oh, the judge. I
02.
forget to count the judge.
and then we have Carolyn who's 3/4 time.
Right.
She does a great job.
But people who show up to the staff meetings and our lunches is 19.
Yeah, 19.
To staff building stuff, yeah, team building.
Is the backhoe, is that replacing a piece of equipment?
We have a 1984 that will be kicked out of the fleet and added.
So question, are you having to put that on trade, or is that something that can be sold to add to a fund, maybe like take care of the Holt Park playground equipment or something?
You'd have to talk to Jim about that. I don't think it works that way, but yeah, it will be auctioned off at a public auction.
If it was
And
bought
that
with
goes
a,
back to general fund.
yeah, if it was bought with a fund, it has to go back to that fund. So
Yeah.
if it was bought with water and you auction it off, the money has to go back to water, you can't use it for playgrounds.
So will it offset the cost of the new backhoe then?
Selling the old one?
Yes.
No.
What does happen with that money? Sell the old one?
So the money that is taken in from selling the old piece of equipment goes back into the fund that it was bought out of. So that piece of equipment was bought half out of water fund and half out of sewer fund. It will be sold for X amount of money and split between those two funds and go back to those two funds.
Right, and then it'll end up
In the ending fund balance.
ending fund balance, and with those
Which
funds.
will then become beginning fund balance the following year, and we'll talk about how to spend it.
Well, with water and sewer specifically, we'll transfer it over to the capital reserves just to make sure it's funding for big ticket items down the road.
But it will have a purpose.
Yeah. So I mean, offset the backhoe this year or next fiscal year, but it will offset something down the road.
It is real money, yes.
Joshua, and then Clark.
So similar question, since it looked like, tallying it up, it was about $73,000 worth of computer, tablet, security, switch, server upgrades and transitions that you're looking to spend money on. Will any of that be going to auction or being sold back or being e-wasted for any allotment?
E-wasted. I don't think we'll get anything for it other than just take it to the recycler.
Okay, so there's no plans on any donations being given away to schools, reuse in a library setting or any nonprofit?
I would say yes, if
Yeah.
there is one that is interested, that I don't want to throw anything away if somebody else can use it, but I wouldn't sell it to them. I mean, it'd be probably a donation.
Okay.
So a nonprofit would be cleanest.
Yeah.
Okay, we had a discussion over here. Clark?
Yes, so I just wanted to ask a question because my guess is that there's a bit of sticker shock with the medical increases and the dental increases. So a medical increase of 10% and dental increase of 7%. Do you have any influence over that number? Like, do you get to decide that it's 10 and 7, or is that something that is dictated for you?
That's something that CIS determines based on the pool of governments that are in CIS. And actually, I think we're in one of the lower risk pools at CIS because we're a small city. There's big cities that have their own risk that CIS evaluates them on, so they get different percentages, but this is the CIS percentage. We could go out on the market and see what we could get if we could get anything better, but CIS is pretty hard to beat.
Yeah, they have that pool power of having all the cities. Yeah, I've always wondered in the for-profit world if for-profits can get together and do that, like pull together and say, we're of this industry and this is our pool, but.
And they give us deals if we do certain things.
Yeah,
Best
there are
practices, yeah.
So it sounds like, though, just to make sure that I'm hearing it, it sounds like actually the 10% and the 7% are lower than what it could be, so.
I think Kaiser this year is higher than 10.
I don't know,
I
because.
think Kaiser came in higher.
Yeah, and they've held off rate increases through COVID. I think they were trying to be, that's all behind us now, and now the increases are coming, so, yeah, good question.
So I have committee member Holt.
Two questions to piggyback off of her great question. One, I understand that CIS, you've stuck with them because they've been good. Do you get an option on what plan you choose? Like, is there some control in that sense on how much the increase is?
Yes and no. It's a little bit complicated because they offer, the plan that we have is not a HSA.
Mm-hmm.
They also offer an HSA.
Mm-hmm.
And they also offer another kind of HSA. But it's,
FSA? Mhm.
yeah, well, we do get the FSA.
You do?
Yeah.
That's it.
But, yeah, you have to kind of work with them on it, and you have to, we'd have to put money into people's accounts, so we'd have to have like $2,000 at the beginning of the year to put in everybody's HSA account, and it's not the way we've done it, not that we can't do it that way, maybe we should look into it. Some cities have been able to save money, some have not, so.
It's interesting because I don't think there's a requirement for the employer to put money into the HSA account. I think that's a benefit, but I don't think it's a requirement.
I think it is a requirement under CIS.
Oh, I was going to say not in the industry, so.
Because if you didn't put anything into the account, your employees will all leave.
Well, yeah. So my other question then along the same lines would be, when is the last time you have shopped insurance outside of CIS?
I've never done it in my career.
It would be, I think, interesting to see.
Yeah, we have
just to keep them in check, really, but.
we have an agent, and that's what the agent is supposed to do. The agent is supposed to, CIS requires us to have an agent. CIS pays the agent, we don't. But the agent is supposed to answer all of our questions and do that kind of legwork. We can certainly ask the agent to do that.
Yeah, on that note, we've had agents come in. I think WHA, for example, came in and sat down and had a conversation with them.
I
with
think
us.
keeping a pulse on that is a good idea, in my opinion.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
The agents looking into workers' comp led CIS to actually kind of adopt SAFE. So there's kind of some kind of partnership between SAFE and CIS for workers' comp that really lowered our workers' comp rates. So, I mean, yeah, it's probably time.
yeah, when push came to shove with CIS and workers' comp, we had, well, during the snowstorm, we had some employees get hurt in it. And initially, we got some quotes on what the following year's rates were gonna be for workers' comp, and we went to SAFE, and we shopped around, and we got it for about half of what they were gonna charge us. And like Michelle said, and then it wasn't but 2 or 3 years later, CIS just got out of workers' comp, and they said we're using SAFE for our clients. So, yeah, we are shopping as the
I think it would
opportunities come
benefit
up.
us to keep it, I mean, it's just an industry I'm very familiar with, and it's really easy to just continually raise rates on people who aren't checking. And so I just was curious if you had been, so.
Yeah, it's a great question, and
Well, we can certainly do that.
And then to pivot off of that, I want to know more about the scientific surveys. I'm curious to know, well, because if we're referring to the surveys I've been seeing going on Facebook.
No.
Okay.
No, we haven't used it at all.
Okay,
because we
that's
don't
what I
have a
wanted to
contract
know.
with them.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
No, that was just a how do you feel about it?
Right.
Is this worth even looking at? So,
I got you,
yeah.
okay,
It's just
fair.
to test the water.
Yeah, I that's fair. I have a real problem with the social media surveys because not just the City of Creswell citizens can take those.
Right.
And
And
so
that's,
to gauge even how City of Creswell feels by going on Facebook and throwing a survey up, I think is a disservice. And so I just wanted to make sure we weren't paying that kind of money for those kind of surveys.
no, that's my concern, is I think the city has questions, legitimate questions, like, should we have a recreation, should we participate in a recreation district like Milano Lane? I think that's a really good question, and I really don't like the way we go about getting answers. So I'd like to have a professional company come in and design the surveys and do the statistical analysis and, get the statistical sample and know how to create some meaningful results.
So then I have one more question. With the general election coming up, we can put anything on the ballot for nothing. Why not just ask that question on the ballot?
I think that the group who actually started this actually wanted it on the May ballot. So, so they're taking a step back because they didn't have enough time. And I think time is of the essence to these people. They're very interested, they have a reason why they want to focus on the May ballot. And eventually it will be on the May ballot for decision, yeah.
But why couldn't we just put it on the ballot and ask rather than spending all this money to find out? It's not very far from now.
The thing about putting things on the ballot is we have to pay for it if it's not a presidential election. So you get a chance every 4
Right.
years.
So November 24, we have a presidential election coming.
Right.
Why would we spend this money? I mean, you're saying that we're gonna spend the money because somebody else is waiting for us. Is that kind of what I'm getting?
No, that when you do a survey, you don't just ask one question. You ask a lot of questions. Are you going to put all of those on the ballot, and how are you going to interpret them? I think this is you get a sample size, and you also get, you get a variety of people, not just people who tend to vote in presidential elections. So I think we need to get those shoulder people. I think we need to have a variety of questions, and I think they'll get more thoughtful input. Not that. And I don't mean at all that people aren't thoughtful when they vote. They definitely are, and I appreciate that. But I just think it will be something that we can really chew on, where if something goes in an election, it goes through a whole different process of implementation. It's not just information, it's a vote. That's different. So, if we wanted to know, how do you feel about a recreation district? And you put it on there and everyone says, yes, let's do a recreation district. Now you have to do a recreation district. And we may not have thought about all the little pieces that go into that. Like, do they want a pool? Do they want a bike park? Do they want to, all these other things that you can ask in a survey. So I think there's some merit to both. I know in the past I've said to the mayor, let's just put it on the ballot. It's a simple question, just what, yes or no, let's put it on the ballot. But if it's not a yes or no question, I don't know if you'll get kind of meaningful information that actually creates a program.
I mean, that's what the ballot summary is for that's what the question summary or whatever you want to call it is for, is to explain why you're asking the question. It's just, I'm not going to go back and forth on it. I was just curious, why choose this option when we have that free option staring us down?
Yeah, we do have it this year for one.
We do.
We
And
don't
I
have
would
it for
argue
four.
that the presidential ballot is way better to do these kinds of things on than the primary ballots. The voter turnout is substantially more.
I'm not going to argue with you on
Yeah.
that one. I think we're in alignment.
I'm a little confused and just want some clarification. The $10,000 in the budget for this year is to contract with an actual company named Scientific Surveys?
No, that's not the name.
Okay, but it's to contract with a company, and with that company, we can do multiple surveys over the course of the year?
Right.
On whatever subject we want,
Right.
and that's the $10,000.
Right.
Not necessarily, we're not simply saying this is $10,000 to do a survey on whether we should join the parks.
No.
This is to contract with a company that we can utilize their services
Yeah.
for whatever kinds of surveys we think might be valuable over the next year.
Right, you can do a survey a month.
Okay,
That's good to know.
and that's totally different than putting something on the ballot in November for a vote.
I just
Contracting
know where
with
the
a company.
focus is right now, and so that's where my brain went.
Okay, I just needed, okay, thank you.
I just had a question, to understand about the use of funds and those kind of things, or even how to fund programs. And I'm a little bit dog in the bone on the whole park equipment repair. Is there anything that restricts a benefactor for paying for that? Is there a process it has to go through, or a fundraiser, or some other?
No, actually, the playground equipment at Holt Park was done as a grassroots fundraiser. And I think it was constructed by a bunch of moms and their husbands who wanted playground equipment at Holt Park. So if somebody wants to come in and give us a check, we'll take it, and we'll put it to that purpose. We certainly will. I know they did fundraising for, I think, the gazebo that's at Garden Lake Park. I think that was a fundraiser.
There's a
So,
bridge out there at the lake.
not anymore.
The dock.
Oh, the dock?
There's like a bridge out on the backside of our neighborhood.
That bridge deteriorated and was removed, and the HOA does not wish to have it back.
Oh, really?
Josh?
Yeah, sorry, this goes back a few questions when she was bringing up HSA determination. Whom do we follow up with about HSA determination?
Jim?
You? Follow up with you later this week?
Sure.
On page 18, ST 18, with the South 10th Street, I noticed that the source is coming from street capital reserve. And my understanding is that with the completion of the 10th Street improvements from Oregon Avenue to the South Urban Growth Boundary, those street capital improvements are coming from the homeowners, they're paying that, whom live along the street, is that right?
There are several funding mechanisms for the South 2nd Street.
Sorry, South 10th. This is
Oh, South 10th?
18.
Oh, that's a long ways from now.
Oh, okay, I just saw it listed there as the FY 2024, 25.
No, that shouldn't be 24, 25 South 10th. No, that should be,
that's gonna be
Is that not showing there?
27.
Can you help us out, Joshua, where are you at, so we can follow along with you?
Oh, yeah. Hey,
In what, the capital improvements plan?
Capital improvement plan.
CIP, page 60?
It
Well,
says,
page 16 there, but.
well, if you look at page 18, it
Yeah.
says fiscal year 27-28.
Okay, so that's a
this needs
fiscal
to be
year.
updated.
Yeah.
looks like. So 10, 27, 20, 29. ST 18, is that you're referring to?
Yeah,
Yeah, we need to add, it's not just street capital reserves, there's also SDCs and bicycle footpath funds
okay, SDCs will be a part of that as well. That was what I was.
And probably an LID.
and LID, yeah, it's in there. Roughly.
Oh.
Project.
24, and that's road ST.
Yeah, good call, I'll update that in the,
Okay.
in this document.
And then, would I also follow up with you, Jim, to ask to see what money has been taken in for this already? If any homeowners had put away money, or like a subdivision had put away money that would be impacted by it?
I can answer that question. You can come and look, but we haven't opened any accounts. So no money has been taken in for that at all.
Okay.
Right,
Even
right.
historically, when the subdivision was created?
No, not that I know of.
No.
The only LID that we've had was Fifth and Harvey.
Yeah,
And that
that's
was, I guess, set up by the county. And then as people paid it off, it's gone away.
Okay.
Yeah, well, when we do an LID, it'll be closer to construction time, and it'll be a very public process. It'll come before the council for approval. They actually have to declare the local improvement district.
It's a special district that has to be set up with specific financials around it. Generally, what you do is you'll need to get a construction loan from a bank, and that'll establish what the LID needs to be. Well, the engineering estimate will establish what the LID needs to be. You'll go and get the money from the bank, and then the LID will be set up to pay back that loan.
Right.
Is that the process when new subdivisions are created?
No, because it's a brand-new street. This is gonna be street repairs. A brand-new street is typically paid for by the developer.
Right, and then donated to the city.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they get a LID in their mortgage, essentially.
So I can go over this with you on any records of any subdivisions that would be impacted by this in the coming years?
It's not a subdivision. A subdivision is a development. A street is a street. They're two different things.
Yeah, so the Meadow Rose plat is all along this, and from speaking with some people who might be impacted by this, their understanding is that when the subdivision was created, money was allotted to sidewalks around the entirety, not just the interior.
Well, I can't speak to that,
I
and
just
that would
was
be
curious
something you
about
could
it.
research, but the repair work that has to be done has to be paid for. Whether that money was invested 20 years ago is immaterial today. If the sidewalk's destroyed and there's no gutter and there's no drainage, then that has to be reestablished.
So money was set aside for it and the city chose not to develop that portion of it, then it would just be reallocated.
There should not be money set aside. I don't understand what you're talking about.
We'll just go over it later,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
check the records on it.
there's a difference between a development and a street. Okay.
So just kind of some clarification, Josh, are you talking about the South 10th Street, the new development that's?
No, not the new development.
The previous one?
Yeah, it just, I had some people contact me and they had questions about that, so they wanted me to ask.
Yeah,
and
I'm
see if
just
I could
getting
look into the records
clarification
on
of
it.
what you were talking about.
Yeah, the Meadow Rose plat, like toward the very end of the urban growth boundary, when that was designated and built out.
South 10th going south? Okay. So, let me just ask a quick question. Isn't the next LED that we're thinking will happen on South 2nd Street?
2nd Street.
Okay. Cliff had a stand up, I yield.
I think I can answer your question. That subdivision, when it goes in, every time there's a lot built, the homeowner that pays for that has a contractor put the sidewalk in. So if there's not a house built along that frontage, there isn't any sidewalk yet. What we're talking about is the main portion of 10th Street from Oregon Avenue, basically past the mill. There's never been any sidewalk, no storm, no curb, no gutter. That's where the LID main portion will be. That answer your question?
Yes, I'm familiar with that. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? If there's no other questions, we will move on to
line item number 7, which is receive public comment on the proposed budget and possible use of state revenue sharing. Have we received any forms for public comment? Okay. If not, no public comment, then we'll move to adjournment. We will so adjourn.
Josh, you were talking about South 10th Street development that's been there for a number of years, that butts up against the new development, and then on the opposite side goes into county property.
Thank you.
I
do. I appreciate it so much.
It's taking away.
I love you so
Like 3 days from now, I'll have like all this stuff that comes in my brain.
It really is almost like because, yeah, you just sort of leave yourself in it like it's
It's just a lot, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, like, so, obviously, the conflict, that's not true.
Here's the icing.